Well, that's fine. From now on, should I transfer money to my mother's account? What? Can I transfer money to your mother's account? She seems quite pitiful. You're giving most of your salary to your mother-in-law, aren't you? I don't think it's necessary, though, is it? You're a really cold person, aren't you? My name's Mark. I'm 32 and I work for a tax accountant's office in New York. My wife is Natalie. She's 2 years younger than me and we met at a bar where she works. My workplace often had parties at the bar where she worked. Because of that, I got to know her, and after a year of dating, we got married. My wife's background is very different from mine. She was raised in foster care. She had been living with her mother and grandmother for as long as she can remember, but her mother disappeared one day. A year after her mother left, her grandmother passed away and she was left to fend for herself. She's been living in foster care since she was 10 years old. My wife doesn't talk much about her childhood. I didn't particularly take too much concern on my wife's background when I first met her. When we got married, my parents asked me if I was okay with our upbringings being so different. I replied that I like her now and didn't have a problem with it. I'm not lying when I say that. At that point, I really had high hopes that there wouldn't be any problems. My wife is a soft-spoken person, but very caring and gentle person. We both supported each other through life. But after 2 years of marriage, things started to fall apart. It all started when my mother-in-law showed up on our doorstep. She showed up without much warning. It felt like an emotional reunion, and my mother-in-law cried. My wife also cried a lot. However, even when I saw the two of them crying at the entrance of the apartment, my heart did not move. I thought she was a rather selfish mother. Natalie, I'm so sorry. I'm being chased by debt collectors. I didn't want to get you involved. Yeah, I've been looking for you for a long time. We lost our house. I didn't know where you went. I'm so happy to finally have found you, Natalie. Yes, me too. I think my wife was genuinely happy to see her mother again. But I've always doubted my mother-in-law. How irresponsible of her to disappear at such an important time. If she was being chased by debt collectors, did they try and collect the debt at my wife's grandmother's house after her mother disappeared? Surely my wife would remember if she had experienced such a horrible thing. What doesn't make sense to me is her chasing after a man and abandoning her child. My mother-in-law is a woman with dyed blonde hair, a miniskirt that's far too short for her age, and a top with a plunging neckline. Her voice is crackled, perhaps from alcohol poisoning. No, you can't just judge a book by its cover. I keep telling myself that. My wife is so happy to see her mother. I can't be thinking these ill thoughts. If they are happy to see one another, that's all that matters, I told myself. It was nice to see you today. I hope we'll see each other soon again. I'm sure we will. Thank you. But I don't think I can come here again. Why? I don't have a place to live right now. My wife looked at me. Well, what did I just tell myself? Is my mother-in-law doing this to me? Would you suddenly show up out of the blue and tell your daughter that you don't have a place to live? If you really cared about your children, you wouldn't be burdening them like this. Well, common sense doesn't seem to apply to a mother who disappears without a trace. The look on my wife's face was begging for me to let her mother stay here. I couldn't stand it, but I didn't have any proof that she was bad or evil. If I really misjudged her, then now is the time to help. I made eye contact with my wife. Sure, your mom can live with us. Thank you. What? Her reply was so fast. Is she all right or not? I was getting more and more suspicious. Thank you so much. I'm going to go right up. It's nice to meet you today. There was no shred of discretion. Ever since my mother-in-law started staying with us, my wife's appearance has been somewhat pained. She's been putting a lot of energy in taking care of her mother. Still, during that time, there was no harm, so I watched her with a warm and open heart. I'm sure my wife was doing something now that she couldn't do in her childhood. But within 2 weeks of my mother-in-law staying, the real danger began to occur. It just so happened that I came home late from work one day and my wife was away buying groceries. This was the first time my mother-in-law and I were alone together. So you're a tax attorney professional, right? Was that my mother-in-law talking to me? The way she was speaking was completely different. Professional? Well, I'm a tax accountant. Are you making a lot of money? I really don't like to talk about this. What are you trying to get at? Why are you talking so differently with me than in front of Natalie? Natalie loves me very much. Even if you say these things about me, she won't believe it. So you're making a lot of money, aren't you? Could you lend me some money? I'm sorry, I can't. What's the matter? Why so stingy? People like you who are making money should give money to people in need like me to keep the economy going. I've never heard of such a theory. This is why kids these days are no good. They don't know anything about the world. Hurry up and just lend me some money, will you? I can't lend you any. After that, every time we were alone, the exchanges would go like this. As my mother-in-law anticipated, I wasn't able to tell my wife about these exchanges. I can't help but say nothing when I see my wife talking to her mother in front of me. Moreover, even if I did say something, it's obvious it would just lead to an argument. I thought I could endure it, as my wife is important to me, but my patience only lasted a month. Just as I was ready to ask her to leave, my mother-in-law said that she'd be leaving our house herself. What a lucky coincidence. Mom, are you really leaving? Yes, I can't always rely on you and Mark. We don't mind if you stay with us for as long as you need. Us, don't include me. I'm all for it. Thank you. I found a new apartment. They said I didn't even need a cosigner, so you guys don't even have to worry about it. That's right, I can show it to you now. It's only a 5-minute walk from here, so why don't we go for a walk? My wife anxiously followed her mother. From then on, I started to trust my wife a little less and less. Ever since my mother-in-law showed up, she's been neglecting me. I was slowly starting to lose affection for my wife, who was always putting her mother first. I followed the two of them and was astonished by the apartment. The apartment was a dump. There was even a famous haunted apartment nearby. My wife looked at her mother with teary eyes. Mom, come back and live with us. No, I will stay and live here. I'll come and visit you from time to time. And my mother-in-law left us the next day. But it was all a ruse on her part. My wife was deceived and fell right into her mother's trap. Mark, can you help my mother out? Why? Because you saw the apartment. Don't you feel sorry for her? Yeah, this is her trick. She's trying to get sympathy from you, to get money from me. My wife was oblivious to the obvious farce. I'm not going to give her any money. Why not? Because she was able to get the apartment. That means she has some money, right? She's out during the day, so she must be working, right? She doesn't have a job. She volunteers at a nursing home during the day. Volunteer? My eyes grew wide open. My mother-in-law is a volunteer. I don't believe she'd do that. Why not? No, I just don't think so. Besides, I'm not giving her money. My wife looked at me coldly. Mark, you're only about what's good for you, isn't it? What do you mean by that? You make a lot more money than I do, so you think I should only listen to you, don't you? What are you on about? When did I say that? You're acting mean. My mother also said the same. Mark is overbearing and scary, she told me. My mother left because of you, didn't she? This made me cry. What did she see me for? You don't know anything about me, so don't blame me all the time. You don't even know who your mother really is. You don't know what I've been through since your mother showed up. You've never given it a second thought, have you? How can you blame me? On that day, my wife and I got into a big fight, and things got quite bad between us. We didn't talk to each other for days, but a few days later I got a phone call from my wife. I was at work, but I picked up the phone to see what was going on. You're at work, right? Yes. I'm really sorry, but would you mind going to my mother's? Why? She hurt her leg and she's having a hard time taking care of herself. She'll be glad if you went instead. But I can't leave the store today because I have a contractor coming in. So I thought maybe it would be great if you could go. Fine, I'll stop by after hours. Thank you. I sighed as I hung up the phone. Even though things are still tense between us, she's still calling me because of her mother's crisis. I felt increasingly numb. I took the divorce papers out of the drawers and stared at them. I guess I'll just have to put an end to it. After hours, I headed to the haunted apartment. You're late. My mother-in-law's leg was bandaged. How are you feeling? I called because I didn't feel well. Hurry up and make some tea. My mother-in-law, only giving orders, pulled out a cigarette and sat down on the sofa. I reluctantly prepared her a cup of tea from the cupboard. Why is there a checkbook in here? The checkbook was placed in the back of the cupboard. I quickly looked back at my mother-in-law. She was absorbed in the television. I quietly picked up the checkbook and examined the contents. What? Oh my God. I couldn't help but let out a gasp. Quiet! I can't hear the television! Honestly, it's just pouring tea. What's taking so long? Phew, she didn't notice anything. My mother-in-law was still watching television and complaining. If you look closely, the teacup and dishes are all expensive china. I suddenly realized everything. Here's your tea. Well, it's time for me to go. What are you talking about? What about dinner? Why don't you order for yourself? If that's the case, are you paying for it? That's unnecessary, isn't it? Because you have so much money, don't you? Seeing the checkbook in my hand, she quickly stood up. That's mine, give it back. She was only 5 foot tall, so she could barely reach my raised hands. I went straight to the doorway, but she rushed towards me with great force. Wait, isn't your leg injured? You were limping until just now. Just give it back to me. I dashed for the door and left the house as fast as I could. When I got home, my wife greeted me. Welcome back. Thanks for today. My mom was hurting, wasn't she? No, not at all. She was in great spirits. Is that so? Was she stressed, and you gave her the money? It seems like they hadn't contacted each other based on this interaction. What money? Did you give her money? No, didn't it pain you to see my poor mother? She's in desperate need of money, and you didn't think to give her some? What do you mean I have to give her money? My wife let out a big sigh. Okay then, from now on, can you send her money? What? You should transfer money to my mother's account. You know she's quite pitiful. You give most of your salary to your mother, don't you? I don't think that's necessary anymore. Why are you being so cold? I thought if you saw my mother hurt, you'd understand. I thought about her so much, but it seems like it's for nothing. What are you thinking? Is it possible that your mother's illness was your idea? Well, you haven't been nice to me, so this is the only way. I was mortified. I threw my mother-in-law's checkbook at my wife. Look at this. What part of this do you not have enough money for? Wake the hell up. What do you mean? Why does she have $500,000? I know she has money. And she's still trying to extort money from us. Come on, face the truth. I mean, she left you to grow up alone until now, and then all of a sudden she shows up and moves in? She shows up at our house and starts asking for money. She asked us for money when you weren't around. What is it about her that you think she is someone that you should be protecting? The old hag is nothing more than a parasite. If you still want to protect her, I won't say anything, but you'll have to divorce me first. I'm sick of it. You never trusted me. Moreover, you tried to frame me. You and your relatives are all alike. You're just like your mother, who lived in that shithole apartment and tried to take money from me. I haven't said all that I wanted to say, but that's okay. I'm sure I don't know how you felt when you actually believed her 100%. I'm sure you've been waiting for her for a long time to show up. When I think about it, you're an unloved and exploited child. After this, my wife and I got divorced. I didn't ask for alimony. This was my last act of mercy. I couldn't take money from my wife, who was tricked by her mother. Of course, there was no division of shared property. We decided that the savings each of us had accumulated were our own money. It's been a month since then. My ex-wife waiting for me outside my office. She said she wanted to apologize. I listened to her talk, but what she had to say was not very surprising. Her mother was arrested for theft and fraud. She was defrauding people at the nursing home she claimed to be volunteering at. She targeted elderly people with dementia and obtained their bank account passwords and fraudulently took their money. It was reported by the families of the elderly victims and she was arrested by the police. I heard that more crimes came to light and she was arrested again. Lucky for her, my mother-in-law was able to keep the money she conned out of my wife. She said all the money was returned to the victims. My wife told me this, apologized, and then disappeared from my life. There was something so sad about the way she looked. And so ended my short marriage, and I'm glad that it did. My ex-wife's darkness was too much for me to handle. I hope she can find someone to be with someday. I don't think I'm ready to get married again anytime soon. I'm more comfortable crunching numbers. Maybe I'll work diligently and open my own office one day. This is my new goal for the time being.